Just trying something different, just because we can. And does it say anything here? Maybe not. Okay.
So we have Ohio, we have Texas, we have Connecticut, we have New York, a lot of other.
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Yeah, don't forget Brooklyn. Did I just lose my screen share? Hi. Hi, everybody. We've got Ed Taylor.
Carol, I wanted to ask you, you said you had relatives in Brooklyn. What part of Brooklyn?
Can't remember what street. She is the librarian for the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
I can tell you the street in just a moment.
And hey, everybody. So I'm going to release a little fun poll while we're waiting for everybody to come in. I have a little poll just because I wanted to show off with all my gadgets. It's just a fun Christmas movie poll. If you have a little time.
You were asking about Brooklyn. She lives on 6th Avenue.
6th Avenue. Oh, that's Prospect Heights on one side, and it's Prospect on the other.
I know she's within walking distance of the gardens. And who am I talking to?
It's Gary. Gary Dryden.
Okay, Gary.
What's here? Huh? And they come in. Thanks, love.
Hey, Jackie.
Hi, gang.
Hi. Hi, Jackie.
Is that your green screen, Ed?
No, it's not. It's the color of the room.
Yeah, it is my green screen. It sure is. And I'm fooling around with OBS, and I'm just not getting it to queue up in here.
Might as well.
All right, we'll get started at about 3. What time is it now? It's 3:02. We'll get started in another minute or so. A couple people are still entering. Wow, look at that. Overwhelmingly, Miracle on 34th Street is everyone's favorite movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Die Hard is my favorite Christmas movie.
So, which edition of Miracle on 34th Street do you like?
There's only one edition.
All of them.
I'll have to say White Christmas is not on that.
You know what? I did this in 5 seconds. I should have included that. That would probably, I should have Googled most popular movies.
White Christmas is great.
I like that.
I watch it like 6 times during the season. Yeah.
It's great. I just saw it for the first time this year. It's so great, and I love the cheesy quality.
Wait, you'd never seen White Christmas until this
No,
year?
I never have. Believe it or not, I never have.
It's our tradition. We have friends whose tradition is to watch the 10 Commandments, and they can do the whole movie from memory, which is kind of weird. And they will. The whole family will do the entire movie of the 10 Commandments.
Wow. Even
That's
you,
where the
Brennan.
line comes from in the Lampoon's Christmas Vacation when Bing Crosby tap danced with Danny Kaye.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is a great time to mute yourselves. And if you haven't already, I'm going to ask that Gary and George can do that for me. And you're meeting Lonnie. So I'm going to leave this up for just a moment so we can see who we're talking about. Welcome, everybody. My name is Ann Votaw. I am the president of the newly formed iBurbs chapter. Now, iBurbs stands for the International Brotherhood of Real Bearded Santas, and it is the very first of its kind in New York City. We are known as the New York City Santas. You are all honorary New Yorkers during this pandemic. We are so glad to connect with you at this time. And I would like to welcome you to Meet Me at Macy's, and our special guest today is Lonnie Cooper. We are also supposed to be joined at some point by another Macy's Santa whose name rhymes with Blarney. Just think about that, folks. And we are streaming this live on our Facebook feed, the New York City Santas, except that all of you who are members of that page, maybe there's 19 of you, all of you are here. So this is a great experiment. And I would like to introduce you to George McTire and Gary Dreyfus. Now, Gary Dreyfus is our president. Gary, can you tell us about the magic show that you've been doing every Saturday?
Every Saturday for the past 2 months, we've been doing a virtual interactive magic show. We've been averaging about 100 people, 50 on Zoom and 50 in Facebook. It's been very successful. We usually have about 6 performers, all world-class entertainers. We're going to expand it. I understand Phil is going to be joining us, Phil Clausian. Can't wait. And yep, and anyone who is interested, just get in touch with me and I'll get you in. Saturdays at 1 p.m. So hope to see you all there.
Very impressive. I've seen a couple of them. Pretty impressive. And George did something very impressive yesterday. George, tell us about what you did yesterday.
Well, last night I organized a Zoom meeting table read of Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing, and actors with whom I've worked, a bunch of friends. We got together, we read through it, had a great time, tried to live feed it. It kind of worked, I think. But it was a really fun Saturday night, if you like Shakespeare. Our next live read will be A Midsummer Night's Dream on the summer solstice, June 20th, 2020, probably at 7:30 p.m. and we will be doing A Midsummer Night's Dream.
I saw it yesterday. It was very impressive and it went really smoothly, George. And George inspired me. George was the person who inspired me to try to stream this on Facebook. And those of you who are with different Santa clubs can do that pretty easily with Zoom. And you can also do it pretty easily onto a YouTube channel if you have a YouTube channel, which is pretty interesting. And I also want to let you know that today is George's birthday. Oh. And on behalf of George, I got his very favorite cake, chocolate chip. And during this, I will be eating this in his honor. And I also have a little candle here.
Oh, man. Well, I'm glad I had a birthday so you can have cake, Ann.
I know.
You're welcome.
You're welcome too. This is how, oh my gosh, Gary is showing off. This is how we do it in Zoom land these days. And I'm going to introduce you to our special guest, Lonnie Cooper. Lonnie, wave your hand so we all know who you are. Yeah, Lonnie's the guy in the blue, kind of the
Hi, nice to see you guys.
Shirt. And Lonnie is a neighbor of mine. We met a few months ago. I think he was just coming from the farmer's market and I was going towards him and I saw that wonderfully groomed beard, and like a sommelier who can smell a fine wine, I knew he was Santa. And I mean, if it were the Westminster Dog Show, I would have nominated him in Best of Breed. That's how we are in the Santa world. We can spot each other. And
she sort of tracked me down. Yes.
Yeah. After that, I stalked him. And so that is why he's here today. And he's an entertainment professional. He has done anything that you can think of in any role possible in any entertainment, in all the entertainment sections. Moscow Ballet, you did stuff with the Big Apple Circus. You'll have to have him tell you that story another time. And I'm going to introduce you here. Let's have some virtual applause for our special guest, Lonnie Cooper at Me At Macy's. All right, Lonnie, and so my first question, I'm just going to start with the basics. All right, where are you from?
I grew up in Michigan, the great state of Michigan.
Where in Michigan?
East Lansing mostly. I went to Michigan State. My parents worked at Michigan State, and we grew up in that sort of middle part around the middle of the, right in the middle of the palm. Yep.
In the middle of the palm. I love how Michigans do that. Yeah. Oh yeah. Look at that. Look at all the Santas doing that.
That's where we grew up. Yep.
The Buckeyes, we refer to that as the state up north.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so how long have you lived in New York City?
I moved here originally in 1989, and then I took a few years off to go to Colorado in the early 2000s for about 5 years. So altogether, I've lived here about 25 years out of the last 30 or so, give or take. And for the last 14 years, I have lived here in Inwood in northern Manhattan, which is where Ann and I are neighbors. Yes.
Right. Right. And then what are some things that you've done in the entertainment industry?
You know, I kind of was one of those people that, like when I was in college, I didn't want to wait tables. I bartended a little bit and was a bouncer, but I really just wanted to be around the theater. And so I did every job you could possibly imagine at Michigan State. I volunteer for everything. And it was the best education they could have had because it wasn't a very good theater department at the time. By just learning how to do everything, including producing our own shows. And so I've been lucky. I've done, mostly my trade has been as a road manager for shows, bands. I worked for the USO for a number of years doing entertainment for the military. But just as Ann said, a little bit of everything. There's an elephant poop story at the Big Apple Circus that I'll tell at another event sometime when we're all sitting around having real beards together.
Well, yeah, and then also we don't know if Zoom has smell-o-vision. We don't need to know that
right,
story
exactly,
yeah. Elephants are large.
Yeah, and they really let it go. Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
So yeah.
Yeah, we know where that is going. We'll talk to Lonnie about that afterwards. You can ask him anything you'd like to in the chat box, and we'll try to fill that. We'll try to field that for you. And when did you become a Macy's Santa?
So in 2014, I was, my life kind of was really sucky, as a matter of fact, at that time. I had a job I hated, a relationship that was breaking up, and I ran into some friends who I hadn't seen in some time, and they happened to be it's a husband-wife couple that happened to be the wardrobe folks for Santaland. They manage, they're two of the three people that manage the wardrobe department. And they said to me, hey, you know, listen, we're looking for their shirt on Santas. We had some guys quit this year. You know, I know it's last minute, but if you're, you know, interested, it's not much pay, but it's something. And I fell in love with it. It's not a stretch to say that it saved my life. It's not a stretch to say that at all. It's an incredible environment. It's actually become more so since then. The management team that was there then was very good for that time, but there needed to be some changes, and they made them a couple of years after that. And the guys, the people that are there now are, I consider seriously, so many people, they're some of my dearest friends in the world. It's become a really, really extraordinary place for me. And it's not the money, because Macy's is cheap. They are cheap. You know, they are nowhere near my hourly rate. But it's an incredible experience, and it's an incredible environment. This year was really an extraordinary situation for me because it was my first year as a real beard Santa there. And it got me into a lot of the special events. So I got to do a lot of, we did a Save the Children event. We did a bunch of Make-A-Wish stuff. I got to do breakfast with Santa. So it opened up some areas and gave me some experience in some areas that I just wouldn't have had otherwise.
I think a lot of us would say that being a Claus has saved our lives, by the way, Lonnie. I'm really glad that you brought, you know, we're laughing, but I think it's true. I think that it comes from something, you know, that,
yeah.
For many of us at least. And then I'm interested, so last year was your first year as a real beard, is that correct? So talk about that transit, because so I know that Macy's has a look. Can you describe the Macy's look?
Yeah, so I think you had the picture of me up earlier
Yeah.
in my current incarnation with Macy's. You know, all the suits are the same. I'm not telling any tales out of school because you guys all are adults enough to know that we have multiple Santas and multiple little houses and it's a little maze. But for a long time, it was very strict that nobody wore their own beards. It predates me. There's guys that have been there. There's at least one guy that's been there 35 years. And I guess about a decade ago, it started to become a little bit more relaxed about whether you could have a real beard or not. And now they've really opened up and started actually to actively encourage it. So it's been great. It was great. There's probably, when I started in 2014, I think there was one out of the 28 or 30, and now there are probably 8 or 9 real beard Santas in the roster. So yeah,
So about 10% of them are now real beards.
give or take. Yeah.
Okay, which is so interesting because we think of Miracle on 34th Street with Edwin Gwynn, the little girl tugging on the real beard. It's just interesting that they were wanting the designer beards for a long time. And then Gary was telling me before we were starting today that Edwin Gwynn actually had a designer beard.
Yeah.
I was in shock.
I mean, that's why it looks so perfect.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that
crazy,
interesting?
Huh? Yeah.
And so what else is part of the look of a Macy's Santa? Why you and not somebody else?
You know, a lot of it is, it's not, and you guys, I mean, I think this holds true for all of us as Clauses or Mrs. Clauses or my 8-year-old as an elf. It's a lot more about attitude and a lot more about, sort of, I mean, the Macy's attitude is when you are in that room and that kid is in that room, you are the one and only Santa Claus. And to the point of being a little tiny bit obnoxious sometimes about it, but with really an understanding that you're trying to give that kid as much time as possible, as much attention as possible and focus in a very, very short amount of time. I don't know if anybody has ever done department store stuff. Macy's is like on steroids, but we get to a point where we call it love them and shove them, where it's like, hi, what do you want for Christmas? Great, I'll see what I can do. Hi, it's like, it's bada boom, bada bing. We literally call it love them and shove them. And nobody likes that time. I'll say this, I don't know if you guys, if anybody has any experience, but we changed the system a few years ago, and now it's a reservation system, and it has increased our volume. We'll see what happens this year, because who knows if they'll even be allowed to do it. But it also spread it out so that instead of these crazy 6-8 hour wait times people were having, it's all down to under 2 hours, and it's all down to a manageable time. So it's also better for us because it means you don't have as grumpy of people. You don't have people that have been waiting, had to take their kid out of line 3 times to pee in the last 6 hours.
Yeah.
So
I'm really glad that you said that, because that segues into my next question, which is the Santaland Diaries, which, by the way, I was reading last night and I was laughing hysterically. So that sounds like it was a little bit of a Santaland Diary moment, the love 'em and shove 'em kind of a thing.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
So here's the thing, and this is mostly my personal view, but also I'd say the general. Everybody, I like it. I like the Santaland Diaries. They're funny. You know what I mean? I read them, and I have a friend who stars in a version of it every year on tour. He's been making a living off of it for a decade now. It was a very different era. David Sedaris is also a snarky little bitch. Let's be honest. And I think he's funny as hell, but he is a snarky little bitch. And to be fair, he probably would never ever get hired at Santaland in the current era. But it's funny. We all think basically most everybody is angry that they didn't think of it first. Every new kid who comes in, because most of the Santaland, especially the elves, are all young, up and coming wannabe actors. They're all a ton of them a lot of people have been there for years, but that's what most of them do. This is a great survival gig during the winter. which also makes me really worried for a lot of people if we're not going to be back this year. But you know, everybody's got like I'm going to write the next great Santaland Diaries version of things, and yeah, it's already been done.
And what are
but we do, yeah. But yeah. It's when people ask us officially, we nod and smile, and yeah, basically that's.
You do that, and so.
Ask them what they want for Christmas.
And we were talking, Lonnie and George and Gary and I were talking before we started, before you all arrived, that we think that maybe the Macy's Santa chair might be the most famous Santa chair in the world. So
probably the parade, especially.
Yeah.
You know, it's just such an iconic, you know, part of not just New York, but you know, the whole holiday season. The guy who I will tell you a little tiny bit of tail out of school, the guy who's been doing we call him, his nickname is Santa because he's been there for 37 years. He started when I was in high school, and he has been he's been doing the parade, I guess now for 18 or 19 years. Great guy. You know, I mean, I have to say it's like a family of people. It's really an extraordinary place. Yeah, it's like one of those things where, you know, it's probably the most, you know, if you think of Santa, that's as good a place as you're going to think of it. Yeah.
So it makes sense that everybody would think that they want to do the next Santaland Diaries because there's a lot of clout. There's a lot of clout with the chair. So what are some of the most memorable and sweet Edwin Wynn moments you've had in the big chair?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, did you get the picture I sent you with Santa Bingo?
I saw it, and I was so nervous getting set up that
It's okay. We'll have to show it later. So we have a game if you can, it's great. We have a game we called Santa Bingo, and it's all about the different types of visits you get. You know what I mean? And if you get them in a row, you get you get chocolate, and I mean, we live on chocolate back there. So it's things like, you know, if a kid throws up in the room, it's a cookie spill. If it's it's what's the other ones? Oh, am I double over up here?
There's a little bit of an echo.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I've had proposals, which are really fun. I'm gonna go out and come back in, Ann.
Sure, we'll keep talking. We'll talk about you. I have a little bit of a reverb. I'm going to stop talking. Gary.
We were getting an echo there for a minute. And
someone has their mic turned on and it's picking up the audio feed. So make sure you're.
Well, whatever it is, it's fine now. So what were you saying, Ann?
Zoom. He's coming back in. You all know, all of you who have tried to do this, you've all been in the same spot that we're in right now. It's a whole new world. Everything is a lot of moving parts with the Zoom conference. Hi, Lonnie. How you doing?
I'm good. So we were talking about visits. Proposals are a good one. Although it still is a weird thing to me. Two people standing in front of Santa Claus asking one to get married. It's a very odd thing. The best one though of all the proposals, and probably my most memorable one happened this year. The girl said no and stomped out of the room.
Oh my gosh! So actually, that is a really good segue for George's final question for a while, and then we'll open it up to all of you. George has an amazing Freudian question.
Lonnie, when I've interviewed Santas in the past, my favorite question to ask him at the end of the interview is, Santa, what do you want for Christmas this year?
I want Santaland to be open. I want Macy's to be open. I really do. it's I am not entirely sure that that's going to happen and what it's going to look like, but I really hope it does, because not just, I mean, it literally is not the money, but it really is about the people. And I really worry about a lot of people that are not going to be able to. I'm lucky this is a part-time gig for me, but I really do worry about a lot of those young actors that are not going to have that survival job that gets them through the winter. Yeah.
I forgot
But
to ask
that's
you
a
what
great question. I love it.
I do too. What's your day job? I forgot to tell that to everybody.
I work at the Fashion Institute of Technology, and I run client services for the Human Resources Department.
Oh, so that's a really good job. That's a
That's
serious
really-
job.
And it's still there.
That's
Yeah. I have some, I'm going to go off. Let's open it up.
Sorry, hello?
Sorry, hello?
Hi guys. So I have an echo. I'm gonna mute myself. Can you all ask questions of Lonnie? All right. Did my echo go? My echo is gone. So can I open it up for questions? If you'd like to unmute yourselves, you can ask burning questions. All right.
I think we're glitching.
How much of a turnover is there at Macy?
The last couple of years have been pretty steady, actually. I think we've had one new person in the last 2 years, partly because we opened up, the reservation system no longer hides the fact that there's a black Santa Claus. You used to have to be in the know to be able to see Mr. Claus, is what the old version was. So over the last 2 years, they've opened that up and made it a very badly kept secret. And instead of one of those guys being on at all time for on-call duty, there are now 4 of them, and they're on all the time. There's always somebody in a house because they've increased that so much. Yeah. But other than that, it's pretty steady. Pretty steady. Every few years, there's 4 or 5 guys that leave.
I used to work with Maurice O'Connell at Macy. And Maurice mentioned that every year they get letters from the United States wanting to apply for a job.